ABC News Chief International Correspondent, James Longman has traveled to more than 60 countries to get to the heart of stories around the world. Now he's taking you on a much more personal journey of how he found hope after uncovering and understanding his family's history of mental illness. Please welcome the author of the new memoir, The Inherited Mind, James Longman.
As Whoopi mentioned, we're used to seeing you report from, far-off countries and front lines of war zones, but this book brings us inside your family's deeply personal battle with mental illness. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my father sadly had schizophrenia and he ended his life when I was 9. His brother had schizophrenia. My grandfather ended his life. My mother has clinical depression, and I have had my own depressions over the years. So I've always wondered, was this written in my code? Is this in my DNA? So what's happening? So I wanted to find out on a genetic level what's going on biologically. More than that, I wanted to find out about my dad because so much was hidden from me. It was such a secret. So I just wanted to know the truth about who John Longman really was,
Yeah. Did you find out a lot?
I mean, it was extraordinary. I got like 120 pages of his medical records. I got notes about, when he was in psychosis, the words that he would say. He'd say things like, I want you to end my life, and when I am completely dead, cut off my head. I mean, it's extraordinarily painful, but I don't want this to be a sad story. It's hopeful. I want people to understand that.
It's not exactly a happy story.
No, I mean, let's be real.
It's the way you can live with it.
But it's the idea is that I buck the trend, right? And I want to give people that message of hope. You can't understand the number of people who've come up to me since this book came out, only a couple of days ago, in studios. Sound engineer the other day came up and said, my brother has schizophrenia. Another person said, my sister is dealing at the moment with severe mental illness. This is so universal, and that's really what the book is.
And there are things
relatable.
you can do, which is what you speak to.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the book, you say that this is so interesting, you feel more at home in a news van with bombs exploding around you than you are, quote, in a family in which every day is war.
Yeah.
And you set that scene with the story of a time you were fleeing ISIS fighters in Syria and received a text from your mother. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so I was in Syria. There was an ISIS a town where we were watching kind of the last fight against ISIS. I came out of that area, we had no service, and my phone buzzed back to life when I got service, and it was my mum, and she said, I don't want to live anymore. You're sick like your father. You have the Longman Curse, right? This is her idea that we got a Longman Curse. So I dealt with severe mental illness on one side of my family, and then the impact it had on everybody else. Suicide is like a bomb going off. It kills the person and it injures everybody else. And it really wounded the relationship I have with my mum. And the book really is an exploration of him, but also how you can try and heal the relationships that remain. And she did her best,
Yeah.
It's like the Hemingways had a lot of suicide in the family.
Absolutely.
It's such an important book, and it's so wonderful. And I think it's going to help so many people. I know my family also has a history of mental health and mental illness, and it's hereditary. And so many people are ashamed about that. But you wouldn't be ashamed of having heart disease.
Exactly.
So why are you ashamed? Why is there so much shame? And much of your family's history with mental illness and suicide was kept a secret from you growing up, unfortunately. What was that like, and how did you put the pieces together?
Well, I wanted to meet the people who looked after him. So I got this 120-page medical report. And there's what happens in a family, and then there's the stories we tell each other. And almost the law becomes more important than the reality. So there was so much shame and secrecy and half-truths. So I found the medical records. I found carers who looked after him when he was sick. I put out requests to track these people down. I found one woman, she looked after him right up until the end. It's her handwriting that's in the notes. She only lives 20 minutes away from me in my house in London.
Wow.
And she came over, and there's this wonderful moment where I open the door, and she recognizes me because I just look like my dad, and she just gave me a big hug. And so it was reattaching reason, facts, information to my dad's story rather than emotion
And narratives
and narratives.
and- yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, you're very open in the book. You talk about your own depressive episodes you've been through, even suicidal thoughts, even in the process of writing and researching this book. So what was that like for you, and how does it feel to be so open and sharing this with all of us?
Honestly, shame has never come into it for me, and I don't know why. I think I've been forced to be open because I've realized it's the way that I've coped. Community is so important. It's so important. What I've learned in my work is, yes, tragedies happen. Yes, there's sadness, but we have such a capacity for resilience. We just do. Humans just do. We're seeing what's going on at the moment in LA. It's horrific. But people will overcome because that is what we do as human beings. And I can go to Ukraine, I can go to Israel, I can speak to people on the street in New York. They'll all have sad stories, but we all have that capacity to
But
overcome.
sadness is different from depression.
That's true,
People
but
should know that.
it's true, but it's the reason why I wanted to write the book is because these hereditary illnesses
Something else.
they are something else. We conflate sometimes mental health with mental illness. You know, we say, we're having a bad day or we're a bit stressed. You're not, a walk in the park or a hashtag mental health day is not going to fix these illnesses. We need our people who run our lives, frankly, to spend more money on mental health support, absolutely. But the point of the book was to provide people with A, information about our genetics, but B, reasons to be hopeful about what our genetics are actually doing, and that's the world of epigenetics.
Yes.
And also, I find that, you know, how people felt about these things, how they hid them in the 50s and 60s, started to evolve as kids got older and said, you should not be hiding me.
Right.
You should be helping me figure out what's going on. And so we've gotten better at saying there are better ways to do this. Because before you couldn't get in, you know, you couldn't go to if your parent went to the hospital, you never saw them again until they came out.
And nobody
if you
told
were
you
certain-
why.
And nobody ever told you.
You write this in your book.
I talk about this in my, you know, because and you're left going, well, is it me? And that starts a whole other thing. And if they have mental issues, as my mom did, and you suddenly start developing things, you know, you're like, wait a minute, I'm not doing this. Somebody needs to talk to me. So it's great that you didn't have that shame.
No.
Because that's not what we needed. That's not what we need. No one should ever feel bad about what's happening to them. Just make sure you're telling somebody.
And you need to surround yourself with people who love and who love you. I have a husband in Alex who is just the most beautiful human being, and I'm so lucky. And the point of the book is to show, yes, you might have a damaged family. There are ideals of family that emerge in the world, ideals of youth, ideals of beauty. None of that means anything. You can build a future that you want for yourself.
This book is delicious. It's great. It's just
so important.
Wonderful.
Very hopeful.
And this is you when you did the audio,
I did, yes. You hear my voice.
Yes.
So Americans seem obsessed with British people.
I am now.
Oh my God, you're British.
If you did video, it would sell even more books.
And that was amazing. Just hearing you do that was fantastic.
That's how we sound.
James,
I'm
thank you
afraid so.
for coming to us. Please feel free to anytime come to this table and tell us what's going on with you.
Thank you
so
I'd
much.
like to know.
Thank you.
And if you or any of you know someone who is struggling, help is available. Call the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988. James' new book, The Inherited Mind, is available right now. You can scan the QR code on your screen to buy it. And members of our audience, you're all going home with a copy of the book.